does not stand still. The world goes forward, changing and being updated, and returning often to the old ideas which were voiced hundreds of years ago. Helena Blavatsky thought that her works and knowledge which she has brought to the world will be understood by mankind maybe in 100 years. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky was born in Yekaterinoslav, now Dnipro, Ukraine, on August 12th, according to the Gregorian, 1831. Some time has passed, and this woman remains in the memory of mankind as the great teacher, the thinker, the writer, the philosopher, the author of books, the secret doctrine, and the exposed Izida. To understand the scale of the identity of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, it is enough to remember people who respected her incredibly highly, talked about her as a great teacher, as a person who has deeply affected their life and creativity. Names such as Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi would be very happy to touch the edge of the dress of Madame Blavatsky. Names such as Scriabin, Maximilian Voloshin, Kandinsky, Andrei Bely, and many representatives of the Silver Age in our culture and our history. The beginning of the Silver Age is usually referred to as beginning in the 1890s. It is necessary to mention Albert Einstein. It is necessary to mention Edison, who, by the way, was a member of the Theosophical Society. And this is the important fact. If we think about the present time, the restoration of the Blavatsky home certainly leads us to the fact that we will fully realize and pay tribute to the name and heritage of our great compatriot. Helena Blavatsky published the first secret doctrines on which all religions are based. She made the first attempt to give a religious and philosophical synthesis of all centuries and nations. It has caused the awakening of religious consciousness of the ancient East and opened to the West the wisdom of the East. She logically proved the importance of morals and a brotherhood and embodied not the fantastic but concrete idealism, penetrating into all areas of life. Helena Blavatsky's doctrine is unique. By and large, it is difficult to find in the history of culture and philosophy of a parallel to Helena Blavatsky. On the one hand, she revealed the depths of human knowledge, a spiritual, holistic view of the world known to the ancients. And on the other hand, she presented a modern worldview, which synthesized, summarized, and united modern achievements of science and history. And all this has furnished a productive, evolutionary level of knowledge for modern humanity. Moreover, Blavatsky's doctrine contains a number of predictions, not of fantastic plan, but predictions of scientific discoveries, the developments of science, which were confirmed during the 20th century. Развития науки, которые подтверждались на протяжении XX века. For example, in the secret doctrine, it is said about divisibility of atoms that they stay in constant motion. Scientists at the time of Blavatsky not only considered atoms indivisible, but also believed that they are not mobile. Blavatsky knew of the general mass-energy relationship developed later in 1905 by Einstein in his special theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. She knew that matter has wave properties. In the 20th century, Louis de Broglie began to disclose this idea in physics.
Helena Blavatsky created in some sense a powerful scientific theoretical basis for development of research in nearly all fields of knowledge which are now used by mankind. Her secret doctrine laid the prerequisites for a whole group of completely new areas of knowledge that are not yet available. For example, the temporal geometry, the geometry of multidimensional time, the direction associated with the use of torsion streams, or areas related to multidimensional interaction. The academic science so far on many questions described in Blavatsky's work is weak and cannot use this material, or simply does not want to work with this stuff. That time is yet to come. The Academy has not developed a scientific method for verification of Blavatsky's knowledge.
She dedicated her life to theosophy, the divine wisdom. She, together with Henry Steele Olcott and William Quan Judge, formed the International Theosophical Society, the purpose and objectives of which was the creation of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color, and the study of ancient and modern religions, philosophies, and sciences, the investigation of the unexplained laws of nature and the psychic powers latent in man. Theosophy is not itself the brainchild of Madame Blavatsky. This is an ancient doctrine rather than a phenomenon of Western culture. Theosophy arose in the depths of antiquity as the Neoplatonic philosophical school and runs through the whole history of European philosophy. This includes medieval German mysticism, Renaissance Neoplatonists, through the work of Swedenborg, Böhm, Paracelsus, and other famous names of the mystical philosophical traditions. And thanks to Helena Blavatsky, these teachings come from the common depths of history, rather than from elite circles of thinkers, and have become the property of all mankind. Therefore, Helena Blavatsky's value is that she heralds from a certain esoteric tradition, from a transmission of devoted persons who bring particular ideas of mankind to the exoteric level. Therefore, these ideas are made available to all who are open to this knowledge. The materialistic way of thinking for a long time separated soul from a body, and, dissecting the latter, tried in vain to explain the status quo. But there is a number of the modern scientists who, like Helena Blavatsky, view the world from positions of its wholeness. This means that everything is interrelated, and we all penetrate each other. Reasoning from these positions, the emergence of each human being in a body on this planet is not random, nor is the place of its birth random. Sometimes people ask me why it is here, on the Dnipro River in Ekaterinoslav, Helena Blavatsky was born. I have thought a lot on this subject, and I have my own version of the answer to this question. It seems to me that it is not accidental that Helena Blavatsky was born in tiny provincial Ekaterinoslav, and not merely on the bank of a great river, but the ancient Dnipro Rapids. The Dnipro Rapids have long been used to read the geological record of this earth. And not without reason, Helena Andreevna Hahn, her mother, with such delight and so beautifully, described the Dnipro Rapids in the story Utbala. Many have tried to decipher the mystery of the laws of time and place that govern the birth of great personalities, the embodiment of rare people with influential goals and objectives, occurs in precisely prescribed places and times. Perhaps the Dnipro Rapids, consisting of the world's oldest granite, aged 3.5 billion years, create a background that influences the surrounding space with subtle forces. It seems to me that there is another reason she was born here, near the Dnipro bank. We have no complete answer yet. Maybe we'll never. But a sign which we do have is quite actual and notable. It can be seen in the first hall of the Historical Museum. It is called Kryon idol, and probably a little bit reveals the secret. Apparently random coincidence in symbols can speak about some other, bigger patterns, which we cannot explain yet. The Kryon idol was found in the village of Krynotskova, several kilometers from the estate of Helena's father, in the village of Chandrovka of Yurievsky district of Dnipropetrovsk region. The well-known Kryon idol is entered in all archaeological catalogs of the world. The Kryon idol is known as an image of the ancient Aryan god Indra, or according to another version, Vishnu. Consolidation of the Western and Eastern teachings is another merit of Helena Blavatsky. Eastern philosophy in Europe became known only to the 19th century. Partly, it is reflected in Schellinger and Schopenhauer's creativity. The Upanishads and other philosophical texts are available through Theosophy and open to study, thanks to Helena Blavatsky. And the globalism of today, which we experience, allows us to find valuable and vital ideals through a synthesis of an Eastern and Western outlook represented in Theosophy. The history of creation of the Museum Center of Helena Blavatsky and her family in the homeland of her birth in Dnipro goes to the middle of the 1980s, when in the course of scientific history research, her grandfather's estate of Andrei Badaev was found, and the only surviving house in the area. At the same time, the initiative group was established to create the Museum Center. Scientists, local historians, and representatives of public organizations united around this idea. Their long and laborious work has led to certain results. In 1991, the delegation from the International Theosophical Society arrived to Dnipro. There were the President, Rada Bernier, and the President of the European Federation, Mr. Kurt Berg. They came here for a very significant conference and to take part in an unveiling ceremony of the plaque on Helena Blavatsky's house. At the time of the Soviet Union, the unveiling of a plaque in memory of HPB was impossible. And only in 1991, when there were changes in our country, the plaque in memory of Helena Blavatsky was unveiled here on the house.
Доска памяти Елены Петровны была здесь открыта на доме.
1991 was a jubilee year dedicated to the 160th anniversary of the birth of Helena Blavatsky. Delegations and guests from many countries, India, Austria, Germany, Russia, Bulgaria, and others, took part in the celebrations. It was a visionary and powerful action, which included the conference Blavatsky and the Present, as well as exhibitions and readings in educational institutions of the city devoted to Helena Blavatsky. These events of 1991 supported the subsequent arrival of Kurt Berg, who gave an impulse to further understanding and the creation of the Museum Scientific Center and attracted people to Theosophy. When the house was transferred to fixed assets of the Historical Museum, it was in a terrible state. But thanks to friends and volunteers who gathered around the house since the 1990s, we have replenished the collection. Various events are held at the Museum Center: scientific conferences, scientific occupations, round tables, club occupations. Thanks to volunteers and friends, the water supply and power supply was restored, the roof has been repaired, and many other repair work has been performed. This movement resulted in decades of volunteerism. The volunteers have worked for 26 consecutive years. In August, people from different cities of Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, and Western Europe come to us. They come and support through their work and restore this house. There is a lot of work to be carried out by the Dnipro architectural historians and the Kiev specialists of Ukr Restoration Institute also put in the building over 100 small drillings into the building structure to diagnose its state. Thanks to this work, the original appearance of the building was fully restored. Vintage door and window openings, stove spaces, stucco moldings were found. The internal enfilade system of halls and rooms became clear. Subsequent research revealed the historical boundaries of the large Ekaterinoslav estate of Blavatsky's grandparents, as well as the scientific and aesthetic value of the wonderful garden of flowers and fruit trees created by them.
Andrei Mikhailovich Fadeev и его супруга Helena Pavlovna.
Andrei Fadeev and his wife Helena Pavlovna were famous naturalists, and Andrei Fadeev was one of the founders of the Ekaterinoslav Pomological Society, which was engaged in cultivation of fruit trees. Helena Pavlovna was a famous botanist, and her incredible